Hi, this is Vivian Watts. I'm here to show you a fun, easy, and most importantly, cost-effective way to make slider cards. A slider card is a card that can lay flat and fit into an envelope. However, once you pull up the front flap, you can reveal a hidden message or a surprise image underneath to bring more joy to your recipient. What if I tell you you don't need to spend additional money to buy a kit? Most of us have layered or nested frame dies in our stash. You can go ahead and use them to make different shapes of slider cards, and there's no measurement needed. Does that sound good? Let's give it a try. You can use any of the frame die set you have. Today I'm using this set from my stash. So using the largest frame die, I'm going to cut 2 pieces. Then I need to cut 2 more pieces using a smaller die. I usually go about 2 sizes smaller. The last piece I need to cut is a very small piece that I'm going to use as my pull tab. So I'm using the smallest die in the set. Here's a look at how many pieces you should have on hand already. So far so good, right? Alright, the next thing we need to do is to create the pulling mechanism. You're going to need the largest piece you die cut earlier and also the cutting die that you use for the smaller die. What you need to do is to cut only 3 sides to form a flap that can be lifted upwards. And this is very easy to do. Whether you're using a cutting mat or folders, simply place the top edge of this die beyond your cutting sandwich. I'm not doing any measurement. I'm going to just eyeball it. And because I'm using a magnetic mat, I don't have to use any tape to put everything in place. However, if you don't have one, you can go ahead and use a low-tack tape so that when you run your pieces through your cutting machine, they won't be shifted. All right, let's take a look. There we go. See how this is done? Now you have a flap that can be lifted upwards and you only cut 3 sides. Next, we're going to create some score lines so we can make folds. The first score line you want to make is at the top of this flap. This is to connect the 2 cut edges. And once you made the score line, you're going to make a valley fold right here. Now we're going to turn the piece. The next score line we want to make is 1/2 inch from the bottom of this flap. There we go. And then we need 1 more score line. So you're going to make a score line pretty much in the middle, in between these 2 score lines that we made earlier. I'm not doing any measuring. I'm only going to eyeball that. As long as it's somewhere in the middle, it will be okay. Now we're going to fold along our score lines. Make a mountain fold on the middle score line. And then make a valley fold of the last score line, the one that's 1/2 inch off the bottom edge. So your piece should look like this right now. So you have valley fold, mountain fold, and another valley fold. And this creates the first step of our making our polling mechanism. Here's another look. All right, so far so good. The next thing we want to do is to cut an opening using the smallest cutting die that we used earlier. So you will place your cutting die like so, and you should have a piece that looks like this. Now you want to retrieve the smaller piece you cut earlier. What we need to do now is to adhere this piece to the piece that we have been working on right now. So make sure you turn your current piece over so you will see the back of the piece. At this point, you want to make sure that you're only applying adhesive in this section. This is the section between the bottom edge of your flap and the first score line, which was 1/2 inch from the bottom. So now we connect these two pieces together like so. Remember, only connecting this section right here. The next thing we want to do is to attach a pull tab. So this is the smallest piece we cut earlier. So now we turn the whole thing over. I lined up the opening. I usually let it hang off the top edge a little bit so it will be easier to pull later. You can use glue or any adhesive of your choice. I find it very easy to use simply Scotch tape to attach these pieces together. All right, I was making sure that everything is lining up correctly, and it looks good so far. All right, it is starting to take shape. Let's take a look of how it's going to work. Once you start pulling the pull tab, your pulling mechanism should start working like this. So here's a good time for you to test your project. All right, it looks like everything looks good. So let's move on to the next step. You need to take the other smaller piece you cut earlier, and we want to create the front of our card. So this piece is exactly the same size as your flap, since we use the same cutting die to cut them. Okay, so because when you pull, you notice that it doesn't pull completely straight. So you want to make another score line 1/2 inch from the bottom to match exactly your pulling mechanism. This way, when you adhere and attach these two pieces together, and when you start to pull, they will move at the same time. So you will not see any gap in between. All right, so now we scored and made a valley fold. Now it's time to attach this front of our card to our pulling mechanism. You're going to put glue or adhesive of your choice in both the bottom section and also the section right below the middle score line. When you attach these two pieces together, you want to make sure that you are matching the score line and the fold that you just made earlier on this smaller piece. Once we connect these pieces and when we try to pull, they will move together. You will not see any gap and they will move very smoothly. Okay, we're going to give it a few seconds to dry. and then we can give it a good test. There we go. Looks like it's working properly. Now let's take a look at the side. This is what your project should look like at this point. You notice when you pull, you're going to reveal what's hidden underneath. Alright, let's compare with the finished project. This is the front of our card. When we pull, you will reveal the hidden or the surprise message. Now let's compare what we have so far. When we pull, we will see an opening to reveal the hidden message. So that means we need to place a back piece. Here's another look to compare the back. For the back piece, you're going to use the same larger piece that you cut earlier, the largest one you have so far. What you want to do is to put adhesive on only 3 sides, like so. At this point, if you want to go ahead and decorate or embellish or stamp your back piece, you can do so. Or you can wait till the very end so you can embellish everything all together. I am using a foam tape to give it a little height, a little distance to separate my polymagnetism and my back piece. This way, I believe it's easier to pull, so it doesn't get caught. Looks like I need to trim out this side a little bit. Remember, we didn't measure anything. We used eyeball to put that piece in the center. And this is perfectly fine. You just off a little bit, which your recipient will hardly notice. So I'm not going to worry about measuring everything. All right, so now we need to trim out a little more tape. Remember to only put adhesive on these 3 sides, because if you put adhesive on the top, you have no place to go. Once you try to pull, it will be stopped. So only 3 sides. And I would recommend using foam tape to give it a little bit height or distance. Okay, we're almost ready to attach these 2 pieces together. Somehow I find it very satisfying to pull out the backing of my foam tape. I don't know, I guess that's just little pleasures in life. Alright, we're almost ready to attach. Making sure that we're lining everything up correctly. Because once you attach, you cannot move. That's the one thing about using foam tape. Alright, looks pretty good. We have the back. And let's give another comparison of our finished project. We have the pull tab, the front of the card, and let's take a look at our polymagnetism. On the finished project, you will see how you can reveal your hidden message. And so far, it looks like our project is working properly. Now, this is a place that you can put your hidden message or your surprise images, anything you would like for your recipient to see. Well, it looks like everything works. That's wonderful. You can leave your card as is, Or you can attach this to a card base so you can write more messages for your recipient. So here's a look at of some other project I've made. Once you get familiar of this technique, you can use different shape of your frame dies. For instance, I use a circle shape on this example. You can use arch, you can use oval, because now you know how to make a slider card with any of the frame die set you have in your stash. Here's another look of our skeleton project that's ready for you to embellish. I hope you enjoy it and give it a try.